Habakkuk 3:17 spoke to me. And it said, although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall the fruit be in or on the vine, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the fields shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd or no cattle in the stalls. 18 says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, the joy in the God of my salvation. And 19 is a completely different sermon within itself, and I really don't want to get into that, but that's something that's awesome. He said, the Lord God is my strength, and he will make my feet like hinds' feet. He will make me to walk upon mine high places. To the chief singer on string instruments, we'll talk about that. You can be seated. I want to talk about something that we have heard probably down through the years, and we have somehow or another experienced ourselves. And I just want to bring to light this particular phrase. I want to talk about a yet praise. A yet praise. Look at your name and say, do you have a yet praise? You got to get involved today. Tell your neighbor, say, you got to talk to me today. Say, I know you might be going through something, but you in church, and when bishops say turn to your neighbor, you just be my neighbor. You're going to talk to me today. Turn to ask him, say, do you have a yet praise? Do you have a yet praise? You know, it's something about a yet praise. It is something about having something on the inside of you that kind of somehow or another supersedes the circumstances that's going on around you. This particular, if I somehow or another break it down theologically for some of you that are studying hermeneutics in school, if I could to break this chapter down for you, it deals with the aspect of the prayer of Habakkuk. And then somehow or another, it deals with the position of Habakkuk. Then this third chapter here talks about the praise of Habakkuk. When you look at the prayer of Habakkuk, it deals with the first couple of verses in that chapter. It talks about the shiganoth, this particular instrument. Some suggest it's an instrument. Some suggest it's a high praise. And he talks about somehow or another, dealing and going over some things and being involved in his life, how God somehow or another begins to deal with him. He said, now my prayer shall be a prayer upon the shiganoth. As he begins to talk about this particular shiganoth deals with the aspect of a loud cry. At the end of that particular chapter, it talks about it should be played upon the stringed instruments. In other words, he said, I'm going through some stuff. He said, but what I'm going through will somehow or another not affect how I respond to God. He said, although I'm going through some things, he said, now my prayer, my song, my rejoicing should be played upon something that will get everybody's attention. As he begins to go down a little bit further, he says some things oftentimes that you will find are only in the book of Psalms. He talks about that God somehow or another was born, brought out of a place called Tema. And he suggests that to us. In the same phrase, he just with the aspect in verse 9, he uses the word Selah. And Selah oftentimes is used something with a praise or a pause in the music. But some suggest it's not a pause, it's a crescendo. And because it could be a crescendo, now he talks about the shiganoth, and now the crescendo, he's dealing with something that he wants to share with people. Now, I'm going through hell and high water because I do not understand what God is doing. He said, we ain't got no food. He said, our enemies are rising up against us. He begins to turn to those who are his contemporaries, and he talks to them, and he tells them somehow or another that God has somehow forgotten about us. God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing what you're doing. Have you ever felt like that? That sometimes you can be in a particular place alone, and you think somehow or another that you can change God's opinion of where you are, particularly based upon your pouting position. Some folk like to pout. Some people will say, well, things ain't working right for me, so I ain't going to do nothing. I'm not going to give God praise. I ain't going to even come to church. I'm not going to give my tithes. I'm not going to do nothing. But see, God is never moved by your pouting. If you ever want to figure out how God moves, if I got any parents in here, you will know that a pouting child won't get nothing.